Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here, back with another CyberInsight live stream. It's Wednesday, so glad you're here, dropping in. Hope everybody's taking care of themselves. It's pretty hot, a whole bunch of different places. It's pretty hot here in DC. Yeah, I think today we're going to be talking about a topic that's kind of come up probably about over the past month or so. If you've been following the channel at all, you know that I've been focused heavily on doing a whole bunch of different AWS certs. You know that I probably studied for, I don't know, maybe like 3 months or so to do the AWS Sysops admin. And then a couple weeks after doing that, I figured for kicks and giggles, I'd go and take the solutions architect exam as well, and did that and passed that. So a question I've been getting a lot from folks who've seen me kind of go on this journey is kind of, really what's the differences between the two of those? Which cert actually makes the most sense to go after? And today we're just going to dive into that. We're going to talk about which AWS cert is right for you, depending upon what it is that your goals are and the type of job you're going after, and really just compare and contrast the two. So hopefully you can make the right decision when it comes to which of those two certs you might be interested in, or maybe you're interested in something else, and maybe we'll hit up that a little bit as well. So if you have any questions or comments, throw those in the chat window. We'll hit those up as we move through this stuff. And as always, appreciate everybody dropping in. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that other good stuff. So yeah, let me just move on over into my other browser and we can jump into this. So kind of right off the bat, I would say it probably would be good to just do a quick 30-second recap of the different types of AWS certifications for those who might not be familiar, or maybe you need a little bit of a refresher. So there's really three different levels here. They have their foundational level, their associate level, and their professional level. The foundational level is the CCP, or the Cloud Certified Practitioner. If you remember, I think I probably did that last year sometime. If you're interested in that, it's kind of really just the foundational levels as far as understanding different services. It doesn't go in depth at all. It's really just straight memorization and some very, very basic cloud fundamentals. It's pretty much the AWS equivalent of the, what is it? AZ900, I think, the Azure fundamentals exam. So if you're familiar with that, then this is pretty much the same thing. Then the next tier up is their associate, and this is for folks who have at least 1 year of experience with AWS. To kind of break them down into three different areas: their architect, operations, and developer lanes. And we see there the solutions architect, the Sysops admin, and the developer. And then depending upon if you feel that you've mastered those, the top level that they have is their professional level certs, and that's either going to be their solutions architect professional or the DevOps engineer professional. Now, if you look over to the right-hand side of that, then you also get into some specialty exams. The one that I'm actually working on now, and the whole reason why I kind of dove into all this AWS stuff, is I really wanted to learn about their networking capabilities. So at the moment, I'm actually studying for the advanced networking specialty. After that, maybe I'll do the security one. But really, the main goal for me has been, from a architecture perspective, wanting to understand what it takes to implement AWS networks, and especially how that integrates back with on-premise stuff. So very, very high level, what those are about. And the two that we're really going to be talking about today is the solutions architect and the Sysops admin. So threw together this little infographic here to kind of break these down. We're going to go a little bit more in depth than what's here on this image, but to me, these were kind of like the main things that stuck out in my mind. And if somebody wanted, a 60-second elevator pitch on the differences between these, then this is really where I would start with that conversation. So when it comes to the solutions architect, really the main gist of that exam is it's to help an individual be able to determine which of the AWS services is the correct one to choose to meet their client's needs. And because of this is the first associate exam that everyone is recommended to do. It kind of sets the baseline that the other two associate exams are built upon. It covers the most amount of services, but compared to the other two exams, it's the easiest of the three. Now, when contrasting that with the Sysops admin exam, or the SOA, it's going to cover, or I shouldn't say cover, but it's going to require you to have an understanding of all of those different services. But then on top of that, it digs deeper and requires you to understand how you're going to need to configure them, the different requirements that you have as far as deploying them, and then how to troubleshoot them. So it goes a lot more in depth. And because of this, it's actually the hardest of the 3 associate exams. So when it comes to actually taking the exams themselves, they're similar from the perspective they're both multiple choice exams. They both have 65 questions and 50 of those are scored, and both require 720 passing score. But again, as I mentioned, that Sysops admin is a bear. It's a beast. It's a lot harder than the solutions architect. And part of that goes back to the fact that it actually has 3 interactive labs, which you have to take, as well as the 65 questions. And because of that, you really have almost another hour added on to the total length of time that it takes to do the exam. Now, if you watch my video that I did immediately after I passed the Sysops admin, you remember that I said I actually took the full amount. I took the 180 minutes because it actually was quite a bit. And I was, I fought with it pretty hard. So the extra 50 minutes there definitely comes in handy. And you studying for that, you definitely have to have a lot of hands-on experience with AWS. With the SAA, the Solutions Architect, you could get away without having to have hands-on experience, although that definitely would help you. And anybody who was going for the Solutions Architect exam, I would 100% recommend getting a lot of lab time with that, just because it's going to make the learning process a bit easier. And then also, really, the point of these exams isn't necessarily to just pass a cert. The point is to verify the knowledge that you have. And really, in order to get that knowledge, you need to be using the products and the services. So I'm trying to think anything else on here that really matters. As I mentioned, the SAA is the foundation of all the other associate and professional and specialty certs. SOA is the hardest of the 3. The SAA really is just kind of taking a next step from their entry level, the foundation cert, the CCP. That covers things from the perspective of, which service does what. This builds on top of that, and there's some nuance in between some of the different options that you would use within those services. So it's kind of taking the next logical step. It's a bit harder than the CCP, but if you're familiar with what was covered in that, then cool, that should, make things be somewhat familiar for you. And again, I will reiterate this. The Sysops admin definitely requires an awful lot of hands-on knowledge. You're going to be doing a lot of labs. I'm going to share or show you some of the resources that you can use for that here at the end of the video, and some of the lab videos that I put together myself that could help you out with that. So let's dig a little bit deeper into kind of the specifics behind each of these from like a learning objective perspective. Again, if you watched either of my videos that I did recapping those, we kind of already dove deep into that. But if you haven't, you can either go check those out, or we'll kind of hit these at a high level. So from the Solutions Architect Associate perspective, kind of the essential services that you need to be focused on, obviously, is the VPCs, subnets, networking, all of that underlying stuff that is used for AWS. And then it digs into, EC2 and all the different types of servers that you're going to be able to spin up, S3, as far as the storage that you can use for that, their IAM for their identity access management solution, RDS for the relational database service, Elastic Load Balancer is the different types that they offer there, Route 53 for DNS, CloudFront, their notification service, their queuing service, Elastic Beanstalk, Kinesis, their workflow, and CloudFormation, which is used for, you could think of it as infrastructure as code, right? So you can do a whole bunch of things just directly through either the web console or the CLI, or you could use the CloudFormation templates to end up actually writing infrastructure as code and pushing that out to end up building or modifying things that you're building within your AWS environment. So these are the main areas that the Solution Architect exam is going to hit on. It's more so knowing within each of these different options to meet different types of requirements that a customer might have. We'll kind of look at some other exam topics that would be here, kind of the basics as far as regions, availability zones, things like that, best practices, policies, a little bit of configuration, but really nowhere near as much as that Sysops admin exam. And it's really kind of just the basics of those different services and going a little bit more in depth with that. Now, when it comes to the Sysops admin, you need to know all that stuff for the most part. I think there's a few topics that maybe aren't covered. So like the Sysops admin doesn't really hit Kinesis that much or Elastic Beanstalk that much, but the rest of that stuff, it definitely does for sure. But it's not only understanding what those services are and which is the best one to choose, you're also looking at how to set up monitoring and reviewing metrics for those, and then how to build out systems. And specifically, building them out, making sure that they have are built out in a way where it has high availability, it has fault tolerance, how to deploy them using different methods. Again, at this point, we're going back to CloudFormation. And in that case, it actually is understanding how to write out the different types of information using a CloudFormation template to end up actually implementing whatever it is solution-wise that you need to do, or updating different types of solutions. Then we also get into troubleshooting and then definitely hitting up security. So looking at IAM policies, knowing how to read those and configure those in order to meet whatever security requirements you have. And then networking, with the SAA, it's understanding that with the Sysops admin, it's actually knowing how to configure the network, how to set up route tables, how to create VPCs, how to configure Route 53 and DNS entries, and different types of options that you have with Route 53 as far as, things that are weighted or other types of options as far as failover and things like that. So one other thing I guess we should kind of hit up since we are talking about the associate exams. I wasn't going to go too deep into it just because I haven't taken the developer associate exam myself, so I don't feel super comfortable talking about like, yes, this is definitely what it is. But just from a high level perspective and looking over different Reddit forums and different blogs and things like that, pretty much the developer associate is for folks who are developing overall solutions within AWS. From what I've read, it seems to be it's kind of the middle exam as far as the level of difficulty. I don't believe that there's any labs that go along with it. So having the labs with the Sysops admin definitely makes that a much more challenging exam. But here looking at the different areas that covers DynamoDB, so looking at kind of like the NoSQL AWS database service that they have, their queuing service, a lot with S3, so working with buckets and policies, lifecycling, versioning, hosting a website, then a notification service, and again, CloudFormation, which would make sense. If you're doing developer and DevOps work, CloudFormation is probably going to be one of the tools that you'd be using a lot as far as deploying different types of things. Now, the interesting thing kind of with these, even though it's under the developer associate, if you go and you look, and we kind of were talking about the different lab videos that I've done recently in preparation for this, I actually have quite a few that cover the different things here that are under the developer associate. So really, these labs would be helpful for you no matter which of the 3 associate exams you're going after. So you see we have a CloudFormation's basic lab video to walk through there, AWS backup basics. Really the interesting thing here would be the S3 portion of that, right? And AWS alerting with the SNS component also would cover that as well. So definitely check those out, independent of which associate cert you might be going after. Probably my favorite out of all these that I did was this AWS Networking Basics. That's a really, really good lab. I wanted to try to put together a video from a network engineer's perspective, walking through things, because if you are coming from a networking background, sometimes it's hard to translate the cloud language into an on-prem language that you might be familiar with. and I tried my best to do that in a way that made sense. So one other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, at least from the overall scope and perspective, a high-level view of which path you might want to go down looking at different AWS certs. I was looking and I found this really great CloudGuru blog post. I actually put a link for it in the video description. Also put a link for this Whizlabs blog in the video description as well, if you want to dig into this a little bit more. But this CloudGuru infographic here, I thought really did a great job kind of breaking down the different paths, or maybe path isn't the right word, but yeah, we'll call it certification path, depending upon the specific role that you're going after, and kind of aligning that with the different AWS certifications that are there, and looking at, you know, whether or not it's a recommended cert or a needed cert. Again, this is somebody's opinion. Do you really need to do that on your own? It really depends on your skill set and the role that you're going into. But hey, when it comes to kind of going after things that might be a little bit unknown to you and new, I think having some perspectives from some folks who've been through the stuff a few times definitely can be a value add, and you know, might give you a little bit of information that you might not know otherwise. So yeah, just kind of looking through these. So the cloud architect, if that's really what you want to do, then solutions architect, DevOps associate. They don't recommend the admin associate, and then doing the solutions architect professional, right? So they recommend Sysops, admin, and then optional, the security specialty. For cloud developer, solutions architect is just recommended, but you definitely need the developer associate. Recommend the Sysops admin, and then there's a DevOps engineer professional that they, you know, say is optional as well. Now, what I'm really unsure of here is the difference between a cloud developer and DevOps. So maybe this is just if you're just building strictly like websites and maybe just individual tools, but the DevOps is if you're really actually, I don't know, doing the day-to-day admin of an entire AWS environment. Then at that point, then they're saying you need the developer and the Sysops admin, and then you need the DevOps engineer professional. So this would be the folks that are really hands on the keyboards, making sure that an AWS environment is up and functional and optimized. From the security perspective, they're saying the solutions architect, the Sysops admin, and security specialty, with the optional advanced networking specialty. Data machine learning, they pretty much say like, hey, get the solutions architect, the developer associate, database specialty, data analytics specialty, machine learning specialty. It's a lot of stuff there. And super dev, I mean, super dev, you just pretty much take everything, right? And then AWS superhero, they're just like, hey, just go after every single cert and exam that they have. What's interesting to me here is for the advanced networking specialty, they really don't put that under anything as being required. I don't know. You would think that whoever is doing the network engineering within the environment, it wouldn't necessarily be someone falling under the security team. And I know that this definitely hits stuff a lot harder than necessarily the professional, either of the professional exams do. So that's kind of another good point, I guess, when we're looking at the differences between all these, is the level of difficulty between these professional exams and these specialties really might differ. So both of these professional exams are going to be very, 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 very hard. And if a person has a background in any of these particular specialties, they're probably going to find these to be a little bit easier than the professional exams, just because of the fact of the amount of topics that you need to be very, very, very skilled and familiar with when it comes to the professional level exams. So, all right, I think that about wraps it up. I see a few questions coming in. We'll go ahead and throw those up. Let me move over to a different screen so it'll be a little bit easier to look at that. Okay, do you feel hands-on experience also goes into your decision of what exam to take? So I think independent of whatever you're doing from an associate exam, I think you want to have the hands-on experience. So I would say that with the Sysops admin, you want more hands-on experience, just because there's 3 different labs, and I'm trying to remember. If you go on Reddit, there's some very, very good posts under the AWS certification subreddit, and they talk about the different topics that are covered on those uh, labs within the Sysops admin exam. And just the breadth of the different things that those cover would necessitate you having a lot of hands-on experience. So I don't think it's a matter of, which, or I'm trying to think how to word this. I don't think it's a matter of you should take one and not do any hands-on experience. I think that you should do the labs no matter what, but it's just the amount of labs that you would need to do for the Sysops admin is going to be more. So I think that's kind of why the natural progression of looking at the associate exams is that you would start with the solutions architect exam, and then pick which other associate exams that you want to take. Just because the amount of practice that we'll end up taking to get to the Sysops admin is just a lot more. I just happen to be freaking crazy sometimes, I guess, and decided to do it backwards. But honestly, from my perspective, I had no intention of taking the solutions architect exam. My whole goal has always been to just do the advanced networking specialty. And from talking to folks who have a lot of AWS experience, they said if you're going to do that, then the one associate exam that you should really focus on is the Sysops admin. So I did that, and since I passed it and then read that, pretty much people were saying if you passed a Sysops admin exam, you should have no problem with the solutions architect exam. Then that's why I just went back and did some studying for a couple weeks and went and took it and passed it. And if you go and you check out my review video for the solutions architect exam, then you'll see the different study materials that I used for that. Pretty much I just looked at the documents that AWS had, identified the differences between what was covered on both exams, studied that, and then also used the Tutorial Dojo practice tests, which were great as far as preparation for the exam. All right, let's see. Got some other questions coming in. Is there any certification I can do for free in AWS? No, which I feel you on that. I want to say that the CCP, I think, is $75. Let me look that up real quick for you. It's $100. Okay. And then the associate exams are $150. So the cool thing is, or the helpful thing, I should say, is that when you pass an AWS exam, you get a 50% off voucher for your next AWS exam. So if you were to go and pass a CCP, which is super easy to pass, there's lots of great free material out there to be able to pass a CCP, you would get a voucher and you'd be able to take the any of the associate exams for $150. And then the professional and specialty exams, I don't remember how much those are, maybe 300, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I get it. It kind of it makes it hard when there's not opportunities out there for the free certs or the ability to get an exam for free. I know that Azure is always doing the free exams multiple times a year, so you keep an eye out for that. You could ask your employer if you're currently working in tech to see if they would cover the cost for that, and maybe some type of online training. There's plenty of very reasonably priced online training. I've talked before. I like Exam Pro. Adrian Cantrell's stuff is really great too. And all of those courses are not very expensive, maybe, $40 or something like that, sometimes even cheaper than that. So that would be the avenue that I would go about with that. So from a network engineer perspective, let's see. Oh, you said currently have the JNCIS and CCNA certification. Um, so it depends which one you want to go with. Like I said, so the Sysops admin is a lot harder um, and takes a lot longer studying. Since you have no AWS experience, um, it probably actually would be better to go with the solutions architect first. For me, since I had already done the CCP, I kind of already had a little bit of a foundational level of understanding about uh, the different AWS services. Um, but either of those really I think would be beneficial. And again, it's like what's the purpose of going after the certs for you? Is it you're trying to get a certain role that requires them? Are you just trying to get like the knowledge that comes along with them? If you're just trying to get the knowledge that comes along with them and you don't care so much about actually getting the certification, then a lot of those courses that I mentioned that don't cost too much money have great labs that you can follow along with. AWS itself, you can use the free tier and you pretty much can build out a whole bunch of different stuff. In fact, what was it? I think last week, let me switch over to something here. So I think like last week, I just did a video here on how to create a free AWS account. I mean, 10 minutes is all it takes to, configure it, register it, get multi-factor authentication going so it's secure, set up billing alerts, because you do have to use a credit card when you sign up for it, but you can set up billing alerts to make sure, like if you're like, hey, I want to make sure that I don't spend over $2 this month, you can set that up, and then you'll get an email alert to make sure that you aren't actually spending any money on this. And it is very easy to set it up and make sure that you aren't doing anything that costs anything. So in fact, a lot of the labs that people put together, especially for kind of like this entry level stuff or introductory level stuff, are doing so with the perspective of understanding that folks don't want to be spending money on the AWS lab. And that's why they have the free tier of services to get people to be able to learn on their product. Get more salaries. Yeah, that's a good reason. Yeah, so I think I don't think that either one of those associate certs is gonna I don't think you're gonna get more money one way or the other with one or the other. The solutions architect one is the one that you definitely see more often, and you'll see it tied to more jobs just because of the fact that I think it's more widely accepted because it's a bit easier. Um, so normally that will be I don't know, I won't say the barrier, but that will be kind of like the minimum requirement that you'll see as far as getting an AWS job that might make or might pay some more money. But the Sysops admin, like I said, is just more technical, and if you do that afterwards or do it together or whatever, that's going to be aligned a bit more with actually looking at doing the advanced networking specialization, which I would assume is somebody who has Cisco and Juniper certs. That's probably really where you want to end up going, because that's really dealing with designing networks, designing VPCs, designing an overall AWS solution from a networking perspective, dealing with different types of data center connections, whether you're talking about IPsec VPNs or direct connections, and then all of the different types of routing options that you end up having, specifically with BGP, static routing, and things like that. So if I were in your shoes and I already had some networking certs, then that would kind of be the path that I would go down. And that is the path that I'm going down. So a little bit of synergy there, I guess. Let's see. Any other questions? If not, we can go ahead and wrap this up. Hope this was helpful to folks. I know that a bunch of people had asked some questions on this, so I hope it provided a little bit of clarity. Next week, we're going to come back and actually start doing some more Try Hack Me stuff. So there's a Windows persistence roam that I think we're going to take a look at and see how that goes. And then I'll continue doing some AWS networking stuff as I'm working through this AWS Advanced Networking course that I'm going through, and hopefully we'll be able to share some cool stuff that I'm learning from that. So appreciate everybody dropping in. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that other good stuff. Yeah, go get at it, and we'll talk soon. All right, take care.